Ladies and gentlemen, as always on the Great Debaters Contest, we do it big.
We do it better with more intellectual teams.
And more debates. I am your host, Esperancia Kapanga.
And I am Chris Buru. The bone of contention today is Africa is worse off with its natural resources. Is it? While opposing this motion, we have Muthale Girls High School.
And proposing the motion, we have St. Angela Girls High School.
Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Africa is worse off with its natural resources. According to Wikipedia, Africa is the second largest and second most populous continent. At about 30.3 million kilometers squared, including adjacent islands, it covers 6% of its total Earth surface, and 20% of Africa is natural. Worse off. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, worse off means poorer or in a more difficult situation. Natural resources, according to the Wikipedia, means materials and substances occurring in nature which can be exploited for economic gain. Everyone seems to have a pet explanation for this tragic phenomena, but citing perverse corruption, dysfunctional units, injustice, and all that. But what's the main cause of this? Natural resources. According to Steinbach's The Pearl, a novel that currently we are tackling in the high schools, once Kino, one of the characters in the book, gets the pearl, what does he think of? He thinks of himself. He thinks of his material wealth. He goes to the extent of killing in order to achieve and satisfy his materialistic goals. Child labor. Tackling the point on child labor, according to the Minds, child labor is a major problem in Africa. You'll find that in the mining sites, children are trafficked to go and work there. Who doesn't want to see the child prosper? Who doesn't want to see the child having a bright future due to education? But due to these natural resources, what happens? Children are trafficked. Children do not achieve their purpose in life. And this can be given an example of Sudan, as it is illegal in most African countries for child trafficking. But child trafficking is also caused by the natural resources. But since the natural resources in Africa do not have technology to be exploited, thus children are being affected. AWorldMagazine.com on the 27th of September 2017 showed that the continent of Africa with a black hole in the middle as an illustration of how much the world takes out of Africa and how much we are suffering, where our natural resources are taken out of Africa, leaving us with a black hole. You'll find, take for example, gold. Gold is mined, extracted, it's taken to the other continents and brought to us in more expensive forms. Thank you.
First proposal, you have 3 minutes to make your case.
The past and the old colonial powers came to Africa with many intentions. One of them being extracting and exploiting natural resources from Africa. Take an example, purchasers and investors are coming to Africa to extract and exploit natural resources. Take an example of Nigeria. In Nigeria, it is known to be among the richest countries in Africa, well known for the oil wells. But the surprising thing is that the wells are owned by the United Kingdom. What about the United Kingdom? Do you want to mean that Africa is worse off with its natural resources, yet the United Kingdom is really investing in them? Do you want to mean that they invent in waste, that they're inventing on nothing? The deeper you are in the chain value, the greater the benefit to the people. This simply means that Africa has come up with many ways and forums of exporting natural resources. For example, iron ore. Nowadays, it is not exported that way. It is extracted, processed, manufactured, and exported. Iron ore is simply refined to steel. After steel, machinery. After that, automobiles. These machines are used to improve the agricultural sector. Look at the hoes and the pangas, digging, improving the agriculture, thus boosting the economy of Africa. It has also led to improvement in technology, whereby machines are being created. Look at the new machines, diamond, made of diamond, chemistry from 3, carbon and its compound, an allotrope of carbon, hardest ever known natural resource existing. This diamond is used to make some of the machines for dredging, for mining, and also for glass cutting. Then how can we say that natural resources in Africa are worse off? You'll bear me witness, each and every one of us in this room. We are all a product of natural resources. I have a pencil here, made up of natural resources. This is wood and graphite. A piece of chalk, made from diatomite, mined in Kariandusi near Gilgil. This chalk is used to impact knowledge on all of us. And my proposers, you'll bear me witness that we are all beneficiaries. And speaking of the matter of child labor that is brought about to natural resources, then why is it that schools are being constructed? Why are teachers investing in schools? Parents investing in schools? Do you want to mean that it is out of natural resources that child labor is coming? It's a high time that we should join hands and stand tall as Africans. Stop taking things for granted. Let's thank Mother Nature for giving us the greatest gift that you can ever have, natural resources. This graphite here is used to make a pencil. With this pencil, you'll write, you make your future better. And it is out of these natural resources that some courses are popping up in the universities. For example, Bachelor of Science in Energy Technology. When you study this, you get skills on how to curb the national disasters and the rest. Thank you.
Second proposer, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
Rather than contributing to freedom, broadly shared growth and social peace, rich deposits of oil and minerals have often brought about tyranny, misery, and insecurity to our African continent. Valentine Kioko from St. Angela's Gilrs, here to propose the motion, Africa is worse off with its natural resources. To answer my fellow opponent, she said that the incident in Nigeria, that about oil, I mean, you said that the UK, they own the oil in Nigeria. I mean, how can you own something which is owned by people who don't live in your country? Take an instance, the incident that happened that Nigeria mines oil. I mean, oil is extracted from Nigeria. But despite the fact that that oil is extracted from Nigeria, they stayed for a while, that when some of them went to the petrol stations, there were no oil. The worst development outcomes measured in poverty, inequality, and deprivation often found in those countries with natural resources. Take an instance, oil-rich Angola. Despite having one of the highest growth rates, its score on Human Development Index remains miserable. On average, resource-rich countries have done even more poorly than countries without resources. They have developed slowly and with much greater inequality compared to countries without resources, and this is exactly the opposite of what one would expect. Take an instance for South Africa. South Africa is one of the richest countries in Africa, but still it has one of the largest slums, that is Soweto, in Africa. People in Soweto, they are unemployed. They lack places to stay. Their health is not that good. Infrastructure has been built with one goal in mind. She said that natural resources in Africa, many people come to our country to process the natural resources in Africa. I mean, she also said that we are all a product of natural resources. A question, do you want to mean that all of us here are produced by natural resources? Okay. So, the high levels of corruption, we have corruption in our country. Nigeria, there was a conflict fought at least which took part control of oil and gas resources. A partial list would include Nigeria, Angola, Burma, Papua New Guinea, and of course, Sudan. There was also Congo War, which was termed as First World War in Africa. This was brought about by oil. And quoting Nyashinsky's song, which he says, Chuki wivu tunakutesana. That he means that many people in Africa, they don't consider them the other people. They only feel jealous of other people. They want to take things for themselves. I mean, if we all loved each other, we could have shared those resources. Resource-rich countries often do not pursue sustainable growth strategies. They fail to realize that if they do not reinvest their resource wealth into productive investments above ground, they are actually born poorer. Thank you.
Second opposer, you have 3 minutes for re-examination.
The young lady, and beautiful I must say, just talked about poverty. You'll bear me witness that it's through the natural resources that you have been able to curb poverty in our countries. It is through the natural resources that you have been able to obtain jobs, to level up the human standards. Let's take a check on infrastructure. It is through the soda ash which is being mined that has enabled building of railways, also building of roads, which help in transportation of the minerals to the industries. Let's take a case file in Botswana. It is the leading in diamond production. The diamond production in Botswana has made it to come off from the low-income country to a middle. Did I just say low-income to middle? It is not the way it was yesterday. It is not the way it was the day before. It has brought about improvement. And how do we just say here and argue the fact that it is not that minerals are worse off in Africa? It is our job, it is our responsibility to make out what is important in our countries. We can take, for example, soda ash. It has brought about trade in different ways, bringing up of markets. It is through these markets that people are able to sell off their products. It is through this market that it has brought about interaction, and interaction brings about unity. I go by the name Vanessa Ndunge, Muthale Gilrs. Thank you.
For the question session, the proposers have been asked, are they saying that Africa is worse only because natural resources are not needed? And the opposers have been asked, is it that development in our country is solely attributed to the natural resources that we have? Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
Natural resources are worsening Africans' condition. Rebecca Kimeu, St. Angela's Girls, firmly proposing the motion that says Africa is worse off with its natural resources. The question that has been asked by the audience, if we are saying that Africa is worse off with its natural resources because they are not needed, the answer is, if these natural resources are causing conflicts among African nations, then yes, these natural resources are not worth it. Natural resources are harboring terrorists. For example, the Boni forest in Kenya has been harboring terrorists. 2,200 police officers were shot and murdered due because of 15 terrorists who are being looked for in Boni forest. African resources, natural resources, have introduced foreign investors. These foreign investors come into African nations, mine our natural resources, and take with them 70% back to their motherland, and we, as Africans, are left with 30%. And 10% of that 30% is given to its people, 10% to the government, and 10% to all our debts. Whereby an African only lives on about 2.5 Eurobond on these 2.5 pounds of these 10%. And in Africa, the population is worth to 1.5 billion people. Natural resources have caused conflicts. Take, for example, water. Water, a natural resource that no being can live without, has been causing conflict between 3 African nations. Egypt, wanting to control the main source of their water, River Nile, which is originating from the Lake Victoria. Uganda, wanting to control Lake Victoria, for it is the source of their food, fish. Kenya, having the highest percentage of Lake Victoria in it, also wanting to control this Lake Victoria. This natural resource called water, if we could just, by one, give it out or learn to control it, then we are not going anywhere with it causing conflicts between us. Natural resources have caused high death rates. In death, I mean when we Africans want to mine these minerals, we have to go back to the World Bank and ask for some loans or some top-up for something we need to do, and hence accumulating different various loans. And when we are worthy to pay it, we can't pay. For the money we have, our economy, no, it just can't pay.
Proposer, you have 3 minutes for your response.
Thank you, Mwende, from St. Angela's Girls High School in Kitui County, for your wonderful question. Well, natural resources actually generate the highest source of employment of people in Africa. See, it is not the sole, it was not said that it was the sole source of employment in Africa. Rather, it is a major contributor. It is a major contributor of employment. And thus, this is why we really need natural resources. There's a shortcut, or better, accountability to manage these resources. Around 35 countries already transfer cash directly to their poor people in their countries through smart cards, debit cards, mobile phones, or even in person. This is getting cheaper and is actually a safer coverage of banking and mobile phone services. There's nothing that prevents the government from directing income from natural resources directly to every single citizen. Well, from the OECD Observer, capabilities are the cornerstone of structural formation. They're simply the things a country can do with what they have. And this is what Africa has. We've got capability. Countries with strong and diversified natural resources production have more opportunities to develop their capabilities. Let's take, for example, South Africa. Well, yes, there has been conflicts, and I won't deny that, but South Africa is actually farther from where it was. It went on from supplying simple tools to its miners, and it became an international producer. And this is why I believe that Africa is better off with what we have. Because Mother Nature never made a mistake to give us what we have. I am Jedida Mbibe Munyaka from St. Anne's Muthale Girls. Thank you.
Proposition, you have 1 minute for your final statement.
According to the African traditional society, life is sacred. Life should be preserved. And as we all know, we have kingship ties, thus making us have good relations. We all want good relations. And with the natural resources, we are not going to have the good relations. Take, for example, the Congo War. What happened? Death, loss of lives, thus not adhering to the kingship ties that we have according to the African traditional society. And my fellow opponent said that South Africa began supplying simple tools. Then if they did, why didn't they supply that to Soweto? I also want to say now that according to the Bible, God said we share. And as we can all see, my chair is not full, we can share. So opposers join me in proposing the motion that Africa is worse off with its natural resources. Thank you.
Opposition, 1 minute for your closing statement.
Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I decide to take the one which is less taken or less traveled. They said that water is a threat because some countries have been fighting over water, the 3 nations that were mentioned. Then it means that water is a threat, and without water it means that we'll be dead. Nobody would want that. What if we just embrace natural resources? And through embracing them, this makes us to be a self-reliant continent, which makes us to rely on ourselves and to do things that they should be done. Thank you.
St. Angelas, Liz Mwende, you did a proper definition of the terms. You are composed on stage, and that was quite good. Valentine Kioko, just like your opponents, you raised something on Soweto, which you could not prove, but you've done good rebuttals. That is quite commendable for you. Jedida Munyaka, you've answered the question nicely, very good examples, and a good language use. Thank you.
St. Anne's Muthale Girls, that was good introduction from Ida Nyokabi. You introduced your point of view by rebutting your opponent's points first, which is a good approach to presenting your points. Then you're a good speaker. If only you can learn to quote from reliable sources, because you came out as a very powerful speaker, but your only shortcoming is you're giving a blank comments without giving us exactly where you're getting the information from. Then Vanessa Nduku, you're a very good speaker. Unfortunately, you had very little content. So you really lost out on mastery of content because you spoke in 1 minute where you're supposed to have spoken in 3 minutes. So that, we really penalized you for that. And then Jedida Munyaka, I liked your style of acknowledging your opponent first and then giving your point of view. Very few speakers can do that. And then you had mastery of content and had passionate and conviction in what you're saying.
With a difference of 1%, the school that wins today's debate is, help me appreciate St. Anne's Muthale Girls High School for being awarded 70%. Let's also appreciate St. Angela's Girls Secondary School for being awarded 69%. A job well done.
Congratulations to both teams. That was a job well done and a good debate given. That's it from the Great Debaters Contest today. Keep the conversation going on our social media platforms. #GDC for SDGs. I have been your host, Esperancia Kapanga.
And I am Chris Boru. Until next time, same place, same time.